I just got back from Meron, and Baruch Hashem, another year, I merited to be by Rebbe Shimon for Lag BaOmer. And when I was there, I looked around, and I saw thousands of people, many of them, that weren't even religious. And I said to myself, do these people know what's written in the Zohar? Do people really understand that Rebbe Shimon was an extremist, almost a fanatic? Rebbe Shimon, please forgive me, I'm just trying to ask a question here. Often the ideas brought down in the Zohar are radical, certainly full of secrets of the Torah that even when translated in English, it's totally impossible for an average person to understand. So why are all these people coming to Rebbe Shimon? Is he really our role model? Is the way of Rebbe Shimon realistic, especially today? We just talked about the power of Rebbe Shimon, his constant connection. He learned Torah day and night. Even prayer for him was a distraction. So I can understand why Hashem and all the tzaddikim from the heavenly worlds desire Rebbe Shimon. But why are all the masses flocking to him? There's a famous debate over how to live in the first tractate, Brachos 35b. What's the proper way to live in this world according to the verses of our Torah? And believe it or not, our hero, Rebbe Shimon, loses. The discussion is over a verse from the beginning of Yeshua. Hashem strengthens Yeshua, and he says, "This Torah shall not depart from your mouths, and you shall contemplate them day and night." Says Rebbe Yishmael, I might have thought that these words should be taken literally. What about the verse that we say in Shema twice a day? V'asavto tegonecho, you shall gather in your grains, to teach us that a person should behave in the way of the world. Set aside time for Torah, but also work. Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai has a different way of looking at things. Is it possible for a person to plow when it's the plowing season, and to sow when it's time to sow, harvest when it's time to harvest? If a person is constantly busy, what will be of the Torah? But rather, a person should dedicate himself exclusively to Torah. For when the Jewish people are doing the will of Hashem, their work is done by others. As the verse from Isaiah says, strangers will come and tend to your flocks and your vineyards, and you will be a nation of Kohanim, those that serve Hashem. Comes along Abai and sums up the dispute and says many acted in accordance to Rabbi Yishmael, combining both work and learning, and they were successful. But many tried to be like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and they weren't successful. So it appears that Rabbi Shimon's way is not the way. And indeed, those that expound on this part of the Talmud, and also in the Jewish codes, Siman 156 explain, after prayers one should go to the house of study, and then go out to business, for beautiful is a life of Talmud Torah, Torah study, and Derech Eretz, the way of the world working. Nevertheless, the Maharshal adds on and says that certainly there are tzaddikim in every generation that merit to this exalted level that other people work for them. But they are few. And similarly, the Chavetz Chaim in the Bir Halacha on this siman, that this halacha is pertinent to most people, but every generation has special individuals that Hashem provides for them. And especially if there's already people that want to support them to learn Torah, certainly this halacha is not pertinent to them, and the relationship between the tribe of Yisachar and Zvulun prove it. One very important addition from the Maharshal, he adds that in the future, all the Jewish people will be tzaddikim, amech kulam tzaddikim. And it will come true, the verse that Rabbi Shimon brings from Isaiah, that strangers will stand up and take care of your flocks and vineyards, and you will be a nation of Kohanim, those that serve Hashem. So we see that in truth, these two lifestyles, the way of Rebbe Yishmael, balance, and the way of Rebbe Shimon, constant connection, exclusive dedication to Torah, they are not necessarily opposing. but rather two different types of people. But more important, the final destination of all the Jewish people in the future is the way of Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai, to be a light until the nations, leaders and teachers of spirituality. Intrinsically, we know that despite the fact that the way of Rebbe Shimon is extreme, we cling to those tzaddikim with all of our heart and desire. And it's very much like the relationship between the body and the soul. Certainly the body has needs and desires, and they must be met. But even though the soul is so small and invisible, ultimately we know that the desire of the soul, which was hewed out of the supernal soul, that so much wants to do the will of Hashem, that is our essential will and desire. The tzaddikim are the souls of the Jewish people. They have only one will, to do the will of Hashem. And therefore we are naturally drawn towards the tzaddikim, and especially Rebbe Shimon. But the question now is, how are we going to get there? How are we going to expand ourselves and elevate ourselves to reach the lifestyle of the future, the way of Rebbe Shimon? So let's turn now to what I like to call my base Torah, Rebbe Nachman's teaching the ravens, in the second part of Likutei Moharan Torah 4, where Rebbe Nachman quotes this prophecy from Isaiah. Teaches the Holy Rebbe, the body's needs are numerous. Even the essentials, the bare minimals, eating, drinking, clothes, and shelter. A person can literally consume all of his days just on the necessities alone. And therefore they can be considered a great hindrance for a person's service of his Creator. And even though working with the right intention is an aspect of building the tabernacle, nevertheless, created the world with his loving kindness, without any arousal from below. Certainly he could sustain the world solely by means of his loving kindness. And then we wouldn't have to engage in any labor or work whatsoever. And even the necessities will be done by others. So how do we bring the world back to where the loving kindness flows? The answer, says Rebbe Nachman, is charity. And listen to the inspiring words of Rebbe Nachman, who expounds on this holy teaching. As long as the channels of blessings are not totally open, a person must work. Only the true Talmidei Chachamim merit to this way of life that will come about in the future. That is, not to work at all. But the multitude of the Jewish people must work. And the essential rectification is when they have intention while they're working to support the true Torah scholars. And through this, each and every one of them merit, according to their charity, to nullify the chains of nature until all of the Jewish people will not have to work at all. Once again, through charity, the world is united and elevated. And this rectification will come about in perfection when the Mashiach comes speedily in our days.